There is something peaceful and unchanging about the village cultivator's field. The Bengali bullocks, like their master, are following a time-worn path which they have always known. Change is inconceivable here, and a stranger to these fields is rare. A visitor is wise if he does not intrude abruptly upon the cultivator's secluded life. He bides his time. If a stranger is to understand the people of the land, he must be patient. If he is to approach the cultivator, it must be with tact and kindness. If he is to dispel suspicions, he must realize that there is good reason for the old man's unfriendliness. Other outsiders have come to this village, and they have not kept their promises. The young visitor seems to understand the problem of the plough. He says that a deeper cut would better prepare the soil and increase the harvest. Yet this is the way it has always been done. One hesitates to change. As the cultivator's only son, Subodh, joins them in the field, he is welcomed by the stranger, who introduces himself as Kanai. Subodh's father is impressed by Kanai's interest in his son and is grateful for his offer to help Subodh learn to read. At last, the hospitality which has lain just beneath the unfriendly shell is revealed. Kanai is welcomed to their home for the evening meal. The village of Krishnapur is similar to many others which Kanai might have visited. It is like thousands of other tiny communities scattered across India. Villages which many of us call home. Were it not for the recent death of the cultivator's wife, this family circle would be complete, and this hut much like thousands of others dotting the length and breadth of the land. It is in this friendly atmosphere that earlier restraint gives way to confidence. The warmth of the occasion draws the three together as food and conversation encourage friendship. The talk turns naturally to matters close to all of them: rainfall, seed time and harvest, problems of village life. But most of all, the father is concerned about his son and the lad's opportunity to seek and to find his own way in life. As the pleasant hours slip by, Kanai discovers that he is no longer looked upon as the stranger of Krishnapur, but instead is received as Bandhu Atithi, the friendly visitor. As Kanai is invited to tell his own story, he speaks of life in his own village and of happy times spent at home. The very occasion reminds Kanai of pleasant hours shared with his mother, speaking of his youthful hopes and dreams. He often said that he felt it necessary to one day leave the village. Famine had come to the land, and there seemed to be little future for Kanai at home. With understanding and patience, his mother gave her blessing, although she feared that the city might not offer all that it had promised. She realized that, like the youth of every generation, he would have to seek for himself. And secretly, she hoped he might someday return to the land, bringing back to it a love and an understanding which time and experience might bring. Kanai left the familiar scenes of Kalyanpur with a sense of excitement, but regret. Life at home in the village had had its rewards. Somehow, even then, he knew that at heart he would always remain a son of the soil. Kanai will never forget his first impression of Calcutta. Horns and bells, motor cars, tram cars, sacred cows, and people, especially people. Everyone seemed to be in a hurry, going and coming, buying and selling, always on the move. He was especially attracted to the industrial areas. The great city seemed to be bursting at the seams with imposing factories of every kind, beehives of activity. Kanai did not understand at the time how quickly his country was growing and catching up with world industrial development. One day, as he arrived in the center of town, Kanai happened to meet a friend whom he hadn't seen for many months, Jamil, who had come to the city from one of the villages to the north. Since coming to Calcutta, he had gained employment as a bearer at Raj Bhavan and seemed to know what was going on in the city. Jamil knew that an examination was being held for trainee candidates in a new village extension program. Details were given in the newspaper. It was an unforgettable experience for Kanai to enter the gates of Raj Bhavan. At long last, the preliminary examinations were complete, and he was asked to attend an important interview session at the government center of West Bengal. As he approached the building, he tried to appear calm, but naturally was nervous and excited. The earlier examinations had been merely preliminary. The final selection would be made here at Raj Bhavan. The applicants were given forms to fill out, asking for information about their previous training. One of the Development Commissioner's representatives spoke to the group and stated that he was especially interested in any experience they had had living and working in the villages. The candidates were told very plainly that they would be sent out to the villages, not as supervisors, but rather as village workers. That all must work with their hands, with their backs, and with their minds to help the people of the land, in the field, in the home, and in the community. It was explained that if they were successful in the examinations, the trainees would receive a 6-month intensive course of study and practical work at the training center at Burdwan. Applications approved. The group traveled by light truck north from Calcutta, about 100 miles to the training center at Burdwan. The first stop at the training center was the men's dormitory. This building was to be home for the next 6 months. With boy-like eagerness, the fellows in the group hurried to find their quarters. It was on the steps that Kanai met his dormitory advisor. Early the next morning, the newly selected group of students gathered together on the lawn for their first assembly. It was a surprise to some to discover that there were several women trainees in the group. There was a spirit of expectancy as the trainees saw the staff and faculty for the first time. As a dignified individual stood up from his chair and approached them, the trainees got their first glimpse of the training center counselor, Sri J.N. Kushari. Few realized how significant a part this person would play in their lives. They were, however, captivated by a genial warmth that radiated from him. Sri Kushari began immediately to outline the basis of training by explaining that most lessons would be learned by observation and practice. He reminded them that they were being trained not to supervise, but to serve the villages of India. As promised, the first class was conducted in a paddy field where the staff agronomist gave instruction in the principles of efficient paddy harvesting. The field classroom system was quite new and different to some of the students who had previously studied in more formal agricultural schools. It was soon realized that at Burdwan, trainees were not merely to study theories of cultivation, but rather to come face to face with basic and important problems facing the cultivators of India. Learn by doing became the motto of every study and working day. Indeed, aching backs gave mute but painful testimony to the application of this principle. The training process included the irrigation canal, as a study was made of the problem of irrigation and water distribution, a subject especially important to those who had come from famine areas. The trainees had been told that the method of study would be the dirty hand system, that they would learn by actually doing the work themselves. It was soon realized, however, that irrigation means more than merely dirty hands. It can mean mud from head to toe. Although not principally concerned with the study and use of heavy mechanical equipment, some training was given in the use and maintenance of certain modern agricultural implements. Realizing that as extension workers, they would be concerned not merely with cultivation, but also with other aspects of village life, trainees received instruction in techniques of literacy guidance. The most modern principles of phonetics were learned, preparing the trainees to help the villagers learn to read, so that all of the people may take an active and intelligent part in government. As training days drew to a close, attention shifted from the training center at Burdwan to the villages of the surrounding countryside. After 6 months of intensive study, the graduating class scattered in every direction to begin assignments as extension workers to the villages of India. And thus, Kanai explains, I find myself in Krishnapur. That is why I am here at your fireside. I have come to you at the request of our government, not to be served, but to serve. Early the next morning, Kanai demonstrates the new moldboard plough. With understanding has come a willingness to consider further the young visitor's suggestions. Kanai faithfully follows the principle that expensive tools are impractical tools and are not to be introduced. His recommendation involves an inexpensive plough which is readily available in most parts of the land. Most of the other suggestions which the extension worker will make to the villagers will involve very little money, if any at all, but they will result in increased food production, higher standards of living, and greater health and happiness for everyone. India looks to the land with confidence and hope. With earnest enthusiasm, our elderly friend gathers his neighbors around him to discuss problems almost as old as India: soil fertilizing, cultivation, and food supply. Various problems of general community welfare are also discussed and voted upon. Thus, the villagers feel that the program of self-help which they have adopted is their program, not something handed down from above. Guidance is given concerning the gathering of existing materials from the village tank for the preparation of compost. Thus, in a single act, the tank is cleaned and made ready for use, and materials for a compost pile are collected. By community effort on a project like this, the villagers are not only enriching their food supply, but are deriving satisfaction from working together. A visit to a nearby demonstration farm conducted by the Department of Agriculture illustrates the benefit of proper fertilizer in the growth of sugar cane. The villagers see two patches of cane side by side, graphically demonstrating the values of scientific cultivation. Basic principles are learned here, which will be applied at the village level at home. As night enfolds the tiny village, it finds the people met together before a motion picture screen. As the villagers share together the experience of looking out upon their India and upon their world, they are banded together in heart and mind and are given new hope for a brighter tomorrow. In time, this new hope becomes a reality. At paddy harvest time, each man brings a portion of his yield as a voluntary contribution to be sold by the village in order to raise funds for the building of a school. It is a joyous and happy occasion, as those who have learned to work together now sacrifice together for the benefit of their children and their community. The future seems to be as bright as their new courage. Pessimism and despair have given way to glowing confidence. In the villages of India, you will find the heart of India. As the villages prosper, so prospers the nation. Perhaps the gift of a mound of paddy looks like a small and insignificant thing. But again, perhaps it is as the people of India learn together, work together, and sacrifice together, that we shall together claim the inheritance which is ours in our land.